Welcome to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. And today we have a very special guest on with Grainne Maycock. Now, we're going to be talking today that this is right in your wheelhouse. Why deals die, the momentum problem in B2B. And we tend to focus a lot on what's happening externally, why deals are stalling, why we're losing momentum. And those are very important conversations. But in our past conversations, you've talked about how there's tremendous amount of friction that can happen internally that kills momentum in deals. And you've got a tremendous background. You've been a chief revenue officer, you are right now with the Acolad Group. You've been a chief sales evangelist. You've been a chief sales officer, but you cut your teeth in operations. And you were the person that the sales team would bring to the call or to the meeting with the prospects to talk about the company and specifically what their expectations should be and what the relationship would be like. So you have a very unique point of view that you bring to this because operations is in charge of making sure that everything internally is aligned. So we got a lot to unpack today, but what I'd love to do is just give you a moment here that if you wouldn't mind just expanding on your background a little bit before we get started.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. So I have spent the last 2 decades of a 3-decade career in revenue generation, revenue enablement, C-suite roles as a chief revenue officer and chief sales officer. But oftentimes I'm asked, how did I start? How did I gravitate towards that? Especially having started my early career in program management, in operations. And I think the big thing for me was curiosity, passionate curiosity about what problems we were trying to solve for a customer, what their environment was like. Was it different to somebody else's environment? Did it depend on the size of company? Did it depend on the industry? What value creation did the people we were talking to have to demonstrate to their shareholders? And I think because in my early career, I wasn't the person getting a commission check. I wasn't the seller. It was easier for me to put aside any desire to win and instead dive curiously into, I'm being brought here to understand the customer, to understand their pain point, to understand what it is they hope to be able to say if they move forward with us. And that enabled my innate curiosity. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, small Irish family, and curiosity about each other and about the world around us was how we grew up. So that kind of demonstrated in everything I did in business in the early days because I was young and clueless and all the things. But suddenly it was like, wow, I really like understanding customers. I like understanding their needs. And then when I came back from those early sales meetings, not being the seller in the room, I was really curious as to how our organizations at the time built programs to go, are we all aligned on understanding the commonality of clients' needs? Are we understanding the commonality of challenges, the differences depending on size of customer, size of engagement? And if not, we're reinventing the wheel each time. So I guess it was a natural step then as I became account manager, business development manager, sales manager, and moved my way up into the C-suite, that what stayed with me was not just building revenue, but building a revenue engine that removed friction and accelerated client value so that you could repeat that client value for the segments you were going after and for the customers who would then tell others, wow, I really got value out of this partnership.
You mentioned very eloquently there that coming back and then focusing in operations on the alignment internally. And on this podcast, we ask every B2B C-suite executive that comes on, what are your 2 greatest challenges for creating long-term sustainable growth? Number 1 challenge by far is internal alignment. Nothing works without internal alignment. And we all know how big of a problem this is. I told you before, I'm really excited about our conversation here today because we don't talk about that enough, right?
It's okay. We haven't got all the answers. I haven't got all the answers, but I agree with you. That alignment, when you think about aligning who you are, your values, who your customers are, who they're not, what you're trying to solve for them, what you can't solve for them. Are you the right partner? what that looks like. Is it scalable? Is it repeatable? Are operations on the same page as sales? Do sales have a playbook? Is technology's roadmap aligned with what solutions say our clients need? Or does it fall down when you go, well, this is a fancy schmancy sales play over here, but technology is missing X, or operations are missing training and Y? When you have all of those parts together, starting with customer centricity, customer understanding, value proposition, the ability to demo, the ability to apply use cases consistently, whether one of our clients or prospects is talking to a project management team, a program manager, a language team, an AI specialist, a seller, they should get the same conversation because there's alignment. And if not, they can't trust that you can move forward and be a team on their behalf.
I'm so glad you brought it up like 3 or 4 times, and we're going to talk about it in a few minutes. But the second biggest challenge was a lack of deep understanding of the customer, right? And without that customer centricity, I mean, every company, and I've said this before on the podcast, we will all, as companies, say we're customer first, we're customer obsessed, right? But it's how you put the actions behind those words. And I love how you started out in operations and you just had a deep fascination and passion for really understanding the customer. That's the highest voice of authority in our business, right? That understanding is the most important thing that we have to align around. But I wanted to ask you a question because you started out our previous conversation saying, Steve, you got to see the whole company like you're a CEO. And so I just wanted to ask you what you meant by that.
So for me, before I joined the C-suite, whether I was in operations management, in language management, in account management, I saw the world through my lens. What was it I needed to achieve? By when? How much? For whom? What were the key metrics for success? And if you were in a different department, you saw the world through that department's metrics. When you're in sales, you see the world through a very particular sales lens. And none of that is wrong. All of that is right. You need to be able to see why you're contributing to the business. But the higher up you go, and as you join an executive team, as you are part of building and driving the momentum for that executive team to succeed in certain areas, you cannot just see things from one lens, even if it's your lens. You have to be able to understand how the jigsaw pieces of your executive team come together. What is shareholder value? What is top line? What is bottom line? How does top line get to bottom line? What are the decisions you need to make? How do those decisions affect how much you invest in CapEx for a certain technology play? How much you invest in sales training? Because you need to accelerate. Maybe you're a SaaS company and you've brought your company to 30 million ARR, but you need to get to 100 million ARR. And it was founder led. And you got to a certain point in your growth where the founder was heavily passionate and you sold, and then you got referrals and you had a good sales team, very tight knit. But suddenly you're scaling at a different level to 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. Like we're a 200 and something million euro company. So when you do that, you need to enable things. So the choices you make when you look at it from a holistic perspective, how do we grow both revenue and profitability? How do we invest in talent? How do we structure for optimization? How do we set aligned KPIs that remove that friction and enable us to get to where we want to go? How do we measure customer success, retention, advocacy? How do we measure the C rate? How do we look competitively at our industry? How do we look outside and inside? How do we question and challenge ourselves? And I had an interesting conversation a few years ago with our current CEO, where I hadn't realized in the past few years, I had naturally started thinking about the jigsaw pieces that drove a company as opposed to just drove the revenue in a company. So now I can't sit in a shareholder meeting and not think about all of the jigsaw pieces that combine to accelerate, to pull a growth lever, to optimize a sales playbook, to optimize an operational team to fit in with something, to bring together tech and solutions and sales and operations so we're all on the same page. and then to look at the challenges, to be able to transparently communicate to an organization if we're pivoting or shifting to AI and what that means. So looking at a company as a company, this is where we are, this is where we need to get to. These are our constraints, these are our opportunities. Where do we choose to put our big bets? How do we govern it? How do we measure it? How do we empower people? Which people? How? What do we say no to? How do we get good at making sure we say no and we say yes, so that when we say yes, it's trusted? So it was funny, our CEO actually said to me, you're now facing the same challenges I face day to day. You're now embracing the same opportunities and potentials to pull levers. We're doing it from flip sides of the same coin, but I can't not see your area. You can't not see every area. And when you do that, you build a company that has a purpose, that has a value creation, that has a passion for customers, but that's backed up by governance and KPIs and measured initiatives and programs that say, well, am I doing well with customer advocacy, or is it just something I say? Like behind me on the screen, whether it will appear clearly or not, we have 3 values. It's forward thinking, open and reliable. 4. And we live and breathe these values because we wanted to understand from a corporate perspective, how do you build values that everybody can live day to day? Whether you're in sales, operations, tech, IT, support functions, finance, admin, wherever you sit in the company, how do you understand what these values mean to how you do your day-to-day job, how you interact with your colleagues, how you show up for your customers and your prospect, how you show up when something isn't working? And we, from a CEO as well as a CRO perspective, I can't not see how all of the pieces come together, from culture to purpose to vision to measure to governance. And I'm really, really grateful that has happened naturally by being surrounded by some pretty phenomenal executives.
One of the main reasons why this is a C-suite podcast is because if you were the head of sales or director of sales, you would be 100% in your sales lane. As a C-suite executive, we have to see a broader perspective of our companies. We're accountable to the board. We're accountable to the other executives. We are responsible for the overall success of the company, not just our department, not just our quotas, right? So I love this perspective. And a lot of it, people could think values, mission, culture. These are buzzwords we've all said and heard before, but I can't tell you how many executives I've talked to who are buyers, by the way, right? You're a B2B buyer when you're buying something for your sales tech stack, right? So we all are in the position of the people who we sell to. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had about it seemed like a sea of sameness from a competitive landscape. And what really matters is the overall experience of what it's going to be like to work with you once I hire you. And that's where culture and mission and values and showing up and be reliable, right? And the things that are on the wall behind you make a tremendous difference. Whether somebody's going to buy up front, whether they're going to churn, whether you're going to have a long relationship, you're going to drive NRR, you're going to do all the right things. These are not soft metrics, what you're talking about here. And so I just love that we're digging into this. You mentioned that most companies, they're building trust, and we have to build trust, but we have to do it in a time of change. And you mentioned whether you're 100 ARR euro company or 200 or 300, we're always changing. We're never the same company that we were. So we're in a change management thing at the same time. Talk to me about building trust and why that's so important for most companies that are always in a change motion.
I think one of the key things, whether it's company or individual, is communication, transparency, and doing what you say you'll do when you say you'll do it. And if there's a change in that, explaining what the change is and why and what you're going to do next. Whether that's with your friendships, with your personal relationships, or as an executive, and it becomes more and more important, the more responsibility you take on for leading and driving a company. today, one of the earlier sessions I had today was an open Q&A where the teams came together and could ask anything, nothing off the table, off you go. And this is important because we move at such a fast pace. We have executive debriefs for our leaders. We have town halls for our entire company. We have departmental meetings. We have executive meetings. We have board meetings. We have newsletters. All of that is never enough. Never enough. You think it is. The people writing it think it's a lot, and they're phenomenally talented. It's never enough. You can never communicate enough. And in those open Q&A sessions, I think one of the things that I like about it is that people ask questions that you weren't thinking about. You might be thinking about your revenue and your EBITDA and the top 5 deals that are going to phenomenally move the needle, or the talented person that you're in competition with a competitor to secure, or the next board meeting, or your budget for next year. There's a million things that take up your mind. But that communication brings you down to the pragmatic day-to-day things that matter to people. So what matters to one is different to what matters to the other. And that's evidenced by the questions that come out in open Q&A sessions like that. Somebody might be curious about strategy because they understood something slightly different, and how will it affect me? Super, great question. Somebody else might be interested in growth potential. Somebody else is worried about what AI means to roles that were fully human and that are now hybrid, or that efficiency is driving something that's different to what they expected. Somebody else is curious and interested about the sales kickoff and where it might be. Somebody else is curious about training and how we're going to upskill the next level of our sellers to tell executive level stories, because they need to empower their clients to tell a shareholder value story, because most people don't realize most sales happen when you're not in the room. Most sales at B2B companies happen when you've already pitched something, you've already had multiple conversations, done demos, got all of the people around the table, you're super aligned. Yay, you followed a sales process. Fantastic. You've got a sequence of events. Great, it's documented. Meeting summary, go. Then that team is pitching to shareholders and you're not there. So how do you make sure, again, communication, what's likely to happen, what are the questions, how do you empower people? And I think different people are interested in different things, but the key for that building of trust is be open, be transparent, share, overshare, repeat again. Make people feel through your actions that when you say you're open to any question, that you are. That when you say that reach out, my door is open, that means a Teams message, a Slack message. Let's grab a coffee. I see you're in the HQ, or I see you're here or there, or hey, I had an idea. Can I share it? We had a really good example recently. And I remember when I got the ping on Teams, it was from somebody I had never had a conversation with. So we've thousands of employees. I'd never had a conversation with this person. They were in the IT team. We were in the middle of this major RFP. One of our US teams had a pretty large opportunity for scaling our multimedia business. This team member reached out and said, hey, can I grab a few minutes? And I went, oh, I must have broken something. So immediately my head went to, I've broken some server, or messed up somebody's infosec, or Lord knows what I did when I was doing 3 other things. So I said, absolutely, of course you can. It was an amazing conversation. Hey, I listened to you and the CEO and one of our SVPs on the town hall this week, and you were sharing a little bit more about what really moves the needle and how people, even not involved in these things, can influence and help. Would it help you to know that I'm actually a big fan and I'm on a user forum for that company and that team? I've access to the strategy in the user forum, and I'd love to be part of the RFP process. And here's 3 ideas about, if I was them, what I would do differently. Holy crap. You are amazing. You are engaging, forward thinking, open, and by the sounds of it, about to be super reliable. Yes, thank you. The person didn't need to reach out. This wasn't part of their day-to-day. This was cross-functional, but guess what? They felt a passionate connection to the company, the message. Why? Because we communicated. So building trust goes in other directions as well to connect people to go, wow. And the very first thing I did after that conversation, which by the way, he still doesn't know I did, was have a conversation with our CEO about how to celebrate him in the next town hall and that type of value. Because trust is about the little things over and over compounded. It's not just about the big strategy or the big next. It's how you get there. It's how you make a team feel that they can do anything, they can overcome anything, and they want to be amazing. They want to look back in several years and go, well, my time at that company, Acolad, was amazing. It was hard. I learned things. I was challenged. I did all the things. But guess what? I trusted. Just like somebody coming to an executive, and I've had examples where they need help on something or they need to balance something personal with something work related. Trust is not just about the big things. It's about the day-to-day little things and how you show somebody what you say is what you mean. And when they challenge that, they'll get exactly what you've said in return.
VCs, PE companies, they focus on the team first, the idea second, right? And what you're talking about here is how do we responsibly, as C-suite executives, build the right team, the right culture, the right values. That gentleman never would have stepped up, I imagine, if you hadn't had that kind of a culture where he felt very comfortable just picking up the phone and calling the CRO and saying, hey, he didn't even say, I got some really good ideas for that RFP. So can I have a conversation with you? But you were open to it, right? You were accessible. That's a huge deal, huge deal.
Somebody else recently, and it was funny, they were in our Paris HQ and they're Irish. And I hadn't seen them in a while. I'm Irish, but I'm in our Paris HQ more than I am anywhere else. And they went, ooh, I heard your office has Irish tea bags and milk, because the French aren't big fans of milk. They drink black coffee. How about a chat and I pop down to your office and you stick the kettle on? Again, somebody in a completely different team, a member of a tech team who reports to somebody else, who reports to somebody else. And my response, absolutely. The insights and the connections you get when you build team relationships and an openness to that value, it's priceless because people will be open with each other as well. They'll be more positive when you have something challenging to go, hey guys, we actually have a problem over here. I need your help. I need us to come together to solve it. And we have 20 more intelligent people than me in this room. Here's where we need to get to. How fast, what, who steps up. So if you don't have that trust, you can't build anything upon it. You can't build relationships. You can't build give and take. You can't do phenomenally amazing things with the same or fewer resources. It has to be win-win.
It's interesting. Literally, just about a week ago, Forrester came out with their predictions 2026, and they said that trust will be the ultimate currency for B2B buyers. What they didn't say is the trust internally and how important that is as currency for alignment and performance internally. I just wanted to make that distinction because I think you've got such an important point that you're making here. And at the beginning, you talked 3-4 different times about your passion about understanding the customer, the voice of the customer. So I'd like to shift a little bit here and just get your opinion, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is the voice of the customer? 1, not at all. 10, critical to our long-term success in the business. Like, why? What's your thought on that?
So if you decide to build solutions, technology, services to solve a problem for customers, if you don't truly understand, is that their problem? Is that a common problem? Have you misunderstood how they might apply it? Or you have a solution, but you fail to understand some of the architectural, technology, connectivity, processes, and restrictions that organization might have, whether it's in adopting AI solutions, whether it's in InfoSec needs, whether it's in procurement practices, whether it is all the eggs in one basket on one platform versus multi-vendor tenancies. If you truly don't understand how an organization works, as well as the problems they have, as well as who's involved and how they tend to approach things, you can build the best solutions in the world. But if you don't understand how customers are going to consume, apply the use cases, you won't scale. You may have a handful of successes, but you'll fall down or you'll reinvent the wheel, which can cause friction. It can stall momentum. It can cause frustration across teams. So you truly need to know, am I solving the right problem? Am I solving it in a way that's consumable? Am I solving it in a way that's scalable? Am I solving it in a way that customers are going to be super excited to go, yes, that one. It's easier than this one over here. And you've thought about our InfoSec 12-week, get through the hoops. And you've thought about our procurement 3-year practices. And you've thought about integration into our 3 other systems and how you would show that. And you've thought about our users. And you've thought about how procurement needs to hit their bonus because they've got a particular cost saving optimization over 2 to 3 years. And more importantly, you've passionately understood why we need to solve this problem, what the impact will be, how to govern it, how to measure it. And guess what? You've sent us the actual people who will do the work with us, be the true partners, as opposed to just sending us salespeople. Delightful and all as salespeople are, you've sent a team that engage with us in the right way with the right level of conversations. And I think without that 11 out of how important is the voice of customer, you could build an amazing product and spend a lot of money and go, oh, it hasn't got SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. Oh, it doesn't meet the latest EU AI Regulatory Act. Oh, they don't want American data, they want European data, or vice versa. They want American, not European, X, Y, and Z. Oh, it's not regulatory compliant with X, Y, and super solution that you're all sitting in a room with no voice of customer, not ideal.
I think this is why it was second among C-suite executives. And McKinsey, I've talked about this on the podcast before, came out with a study in 2023 that only 15% of companies actually execute well on a voice of the customer program. And most of the C-suite execs that I talk to say, Steve, that's probably too high at 15%. But they talk about how it's the fuel for ideation and innovation. And so my question to you is, how do you recommend understanding the voice of the customer? How do you recommend making sure that this is a continual operationalized part of the business that we have?
So we have several ways, formal and informal. So we have Net Promoter Score. We all know that we would love 100% of our customers to respond to Net Promoter Score so that the result you get is amazing, but it also represents 90% plus of your customers. That tends not to be the case. So it's a subset of a voice of your customers. But if you do it well, if you make it easy, if you make it not too onerous and not too often and a very simple thing, you get really valuable insights and you give a voice in there to not just answer the NPS question, but to give feedback on your top 4 or 5, where it might be guys, thanks a million for this. This has helped drive X feature or Y product, or here's an Acolad pen. Thank you very much. Here's a little notebook. It can be something simple. That's formalized. It's several times a year, 2 to 3 max. And that's great. We benchmark against competitors. We benchmark against ourselves last period, all of the things. We benchmark against B2B and what's appropriate in this space. So we're very happy with our NPS. However, it's a subset. The day-to-day you do with your customers, the quarterly business reviews, the project analysis, the how do you feel about this on a scale of 1 to 5, the little star. How did the project go? Wow, I just clicked a star. 5 stars, yay, gamified, next. Or 1, okay, if somebody's not following up with somebody who put a 1 in a box that had 1 to 5, we have a problem in that we might state we love customer feedback, but we're not paying attention. So the second way is ongoing. So the project 1 to 5, were you happy? And we'll look and make sure we connect. It's the day-to-day conversations with our project managers, our operations teams, our sellers, and making sure that the importance of what our customers say is fed back, both positive and negative. So I'm really missing out what they say about competitors, that there is a place, a channel to feed that back. So we're looking, and we have a matrix central team, we have a solutions team, we have a pre-sales team, marketing teams that take that analysis and look what's the commonality of the feedback. Super interesting stuff. Am I planning on changing partners in the next 6 to 12 months? Everybody's looking at that. Yes. No. Why? Am I planning on adopting more AI in the following use cases? Yes or no? Why? Have I got a solid solution, or what are the areas I'm missing? Like, the value of listening to customers, truly listening, helps drive your business forward. And then what we do, less frequently, but reasonably frequently and enough for us to have independent feedback, is we engage third parties where it's not us. It might be a large consulting house. It might, like, we have we have at least 4 consulting companies that we work with regularly, and we want them to challenge us versus the competition, to interview our customers independently about what they love and hate about working with us, how we compare to others, what those insights are. And we take that at an exec team level, at a sales team level, to go, guys, this isn't us. This is what our customers are saying to somebody else. The value of that is phenomenal. And no matter what our customers say, again, going back to trust, we trust that they have spent time expressing opinions that we act on.
I have to say, I wish we had another 2 hours. But we've covered so much territory here. What I'd love to do is get your thoughts on one last question, and a short answer on this, because it's a single takeaway. What is the one thing that you would like to have other B2B C-suite executives that are going to be consuming this podcast take away from our conversation? The one most important thing.
You can never over communicate on any strategy, on any topic, on any result. Be customer focused, but over communicate with your internal teams, your cross-functional teams. You think somebody understands X? Let's make sure.
I have to say, I know people are going to have questions, and I would love to provide a link to your LinkedIn profile, if that's okay, so people could reach out.
Absolutely.
Well, we bring different voices of your peer community together. B2B companies that are in an ABM, go-to-market motion, ton of SaaS companies come on here. And the idea is that we all have a different perspective and insights from our experiences and our years in the business, and then in leadership positions as C-suite executives. And if we can bring all that together and share with each other, then that's the rising tide that lifts all boats. And you were an amazing part of that today.
Thank you. The one thing I would say to SaaS companies that I've come across, and especially in recent years, founders who are growing to the next level, if I was to give one takeaway there, is don't underestimate the accelerated growth lever that going global is. Don't just exist in English. Remove the language barriers and start spreading to non-English markets. And that's where I can help as well.
Well, fantastic. Grainne, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on to the podcast.
It was a pleasure, Steve. Thank you very much.